Okay, welcome to Candidates Night for our community. The American Legion, Post 79 here in Berwick, and the Auxiliary Unit 79 are pleased to host this Candidates Night. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Some of you may already know the format, but I'm going to go over the format this evening, how we're going to proceed. Each candidate will start by making up to a 5-minute opening statement. We will start with the short-term candidates alphabetically, and then proceed to the 2-year candidates alphabetically, and that's how they're seated. Ernest Krevling, Brian O'Connor, Ken Poirier, Derek White, Ed Gagnier, Derek Gould, Bart Haley, and Richie DeSherico. Mr. Stillings here next on my right is the timer, so if you start seeing him flashcards, don't get excited. He's just going to give people advance warning when their time is up. After these gentlemen have made their 5-minute opening statement, we're going to proceed to the question and answer period. Your questions will be limited to 1 minute, and the responses will be limited to 1 minute. All right? Mr. Stillings will flash the card. If we're in a situation where it's 4 or 5 seconds, I'm not going to get ugly, okay? Your questions now have got to be questions. We're not going to tolerate tirades, statements, or comments. And hopefully these questions are thoughtful questions so that we can glean from these gentlemen some of the issues you're concerned about and their responses, and we get to know them. Obviously, there'll be no cussing, no interruptions, and you all know we're on television. When you ask your question, there's a mic there in the center of the aisle. We'd like for you, for the TV people at home, to come to the mic to ask your question so it doesn't have to be repeated. If you're handicapped somewhat, I'll listen to your question and I'll repeat it for you. We're going to allow up to 30 minutes or so for that. If it's progressing smoothly and it's good interaction between the audience and the candidates, we'll let it flow. After the question and answer period is over, we have some goodies and coffees and some refreshments over there, and we'd like for you to participate in those, and that'll give you an opportunity to go one-on-one with the candidates if you so choose. And again, the time limit on that will depend on how that proceeds. Are there any questions? Let's try to conduct it civilly as best as possible. I'm not going to tolerate a lot of crap, okay? And some of you know me well enough. We can do this civilly. Okay, gentlemen, why don't you take your seats? I get it on wrong? Thank you. That's the first. That's the only problem. We're all set. Mr. Krevling, you want to start off, please? You're going to have to speak into the mic.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming tonight. My name's Ernie Krevling. I've lived in Berwick for the better part of 40 years. We came here when I was in the 3rd grade. I graduated from Noble High School in 1980. Went to USM, University of Southern Maine, and graduated there with a degree in business administration. And went into the Army. And when I was honorably discharged from the Army, that was in Texas, I started working out there in municipal government. I actually went to Texas State Technical Institute for Building Construction Technology for a year, and was recruited from that school for the city of LaPorte, Texas, which is right outside of Houston. And I worked as a building inspector there for about a year, and then moved off to Freeport and Victoria, Texas, and became a building official. We moved back here to Maine in 1992, where I got my first job in Maine for the town of Sanford as their housing rehab specialist. And within a year, they had promoted me to community development director, and I was there for 6 years, and we were engaged in all kinds of different projects over there, from housing rehabilitation to repairing roads and sewers. We opened a dental clinic. We rehabilitated an old library on the Nassau College campus and really helped to bring that campus back to life. And then in '98, I went to the town of Farmington and worked for them for 7 years as their town administrator. So I've been involved with operational budgeting, capital budgeting, and we actually instituted the first capital improvement program that was faithfully followed, and that really goes a long way in keeping your tax rate stable. And from there, I have been in the town of Raymond, New Hampshire now for the past 6 years as a community development director. And I work in economic development projects, planning, and every now and then, as needed, I'm appointed as the acting town manager. I decided to run for one of these open positions after really seeing what was going on in the paper, and I mean, what happened was really unprecedented, and I wanted to just use the benefit of my experience, provide that for my community that I live in. Ironically enough, you know, I've been here long enough, and I've worked for other towns and cities, but I've never really been involved in Berwick's politics at all. So here I am. That's what I'm here for, and you know, I've got some views on local government that have really served me well since I've been in it. One of them is to involve the public as much as possible. I mean, sometimes people think they know it all, but they don't. And you know, the more eyes you have on things and the more involvement you have in things, with all people, the better product that you end up with at the end of the day. Local government has a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayer. The selectmen, I think, have a primary role of making sure that your tax money is spent the way it was meant to be spent appropriately and efficiently, and they should be seeking ways to improve that all the time. I think it's important for a community to develop a collective sense of what it wants to become and where it wants to go. You know, to me, it seems as though a lot of this is based on mistrust and a lack of communication that's occurred, you know, over the recent years. And I think it's important to engage in dialogue with the public. And I don't mean just at selectmen's meetings. I mean, you know, I've been involved with a program called New Hampshire Listens. The Carsey Institute at the University of New Hampshire trains facilitators, and they go around and they facilitate community conversations about some of the issues that communities can't seem to come to agreement with. And that kind of process really, really works. It gets people engaged and communicating in a safe environment where they don't have to be worried about getting yelled at or getting, you know, put down. And I would like to see something like that happen here in Berwick. You know, comprehensive planning. I know that you know, you've had a comprehensive plan. I think it was adopted back in the 90s, and I think updated once in 2004. But you know, it's one of those things where I'm not sure you're too really aware of it. That too many people are, and I think that these days the use of media, like the website, social media, and so forth, to keep people involved, is very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. O'Connor?
Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming this evening. First, I'd like to thank all the members of American Legion Post 79 for hosting this event, and Commander Ron Vigu for moderating it. I'd also like to thank the rest of the candidates this evening for attending and participating in tonight's event. My name is Brian O'Connor. My wife, Kim, and our 2 children have been residents of Berwick since 2005. Prior to that, we lived in North Berwick. I'm a graduate of the Massachusetts College of Pharmacy. I graduated in 1996. I'm currently employed at the York Hospital, and I have been there since the year 2000. Right now is a critical time for Berwick, and I believe it is most important that we as residents focus not so much on the past, but put our energy into developing a plan for the future. By future, I simply do not mean the next month or two, but more like 10, 25, and 50 years down the road. We need to put together a comprehensive plan that deals with topics ranging from long-term growth management, school overcrowding, downtown revitalization, economic expansion, and financial stability, to name a few. We cannot expect that this new board, whoever the members may be, or any board of the future, will be successful unless there is a well-thought-out plan that can be used as the focal point for all future debates and discussions. Every future article voted down by the townspeople and every decision made by future boards should be centered on these long-term goals. Healthy debate must occur in our community, where a clear vision of what we want our town to look like in the future can be drafted. It is the responsibility of this next board not only to just manage the town from year to year, but to use these public debates to establish a foundation for the future. To accomplish this, we need members on this board who will be patient, objective, and conscientious. I'm here today asking the community to give me the opportunity to participate in this process because I believe that I possess these qualities. In today's economic environment, it has become more and more essential that towns like ours be run like a publicly traded company. We as taxpayers now must also be viewed as investors. No longer are we willing to contribute our hard-earned money without feeling we are getting a return on our investment. That return may come in different ways for different people. It may come in the fashion of a new service for the elderly, or it may simply be an increase in property value when we go to sell our homes. To accomplish this, the next board needs to win back the trust of the people of Berwick. The only way this can happen is if all 5 members of the board have the ability to put some of their personal feelings aside, listen to debate, and make objective decisions that are based on the best interest of the town and its long-term success. This board must be open-minded to all different types of ideas and give those ideas fair consideration. If this can occur, it will be then and only then that the people will regain their faith in how our town is managed. The people of Berwick will then be willing to constructively contribute to achieving long-term goals, and a true sense of community will be developed. This sense of community will ultimately open doors and act as encouragement for outside investment in our community. As a pharmacist, I am proud to be a member of a small fraternity of people who are frequently regarded as one of the most trustworthy professions. This will not change as I attempt to take on this new challenge. If elected, I will work diligently to perform my duties with a level of integrity, objectivity, and patience that one should expect from their elected officials. I vow to work respectively with other board members, town employees, and members of the community to develop a long-term plan for the town. I will then cast my votes in a fashion that promotes success for these long-term goals. In conclusion, as a candidate and voter, I can only ask one thing. Please consider the concepts of integrity, objectivity, patience, and forward thinking when you cast your ballots on April 3rd. I believe those who emulate these qualities consistently will be most capable in leading the town to a prosperous future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Krevling, and thank you, Mr. O'Connor. Mr. Poirier?
First thing is to stand up, be seen, speak up and be heard. Glad to see all you folks here tonight. I hope the next one of these we have that this place is so full they can't get nobody in it. All you folks from Berwick and afar, glad to see you here to clean up the operations of this town. And I hang my head in kind of sad sorrow because a friend of mine said to me it's our own fault that things are like they are because we didn't get involved. I came involved when someone invited me to a selectmen's meeting to talk about 9 Rochester Street and a school on School Street. When we, the wife and I, attended the first meeting in years, I was, oh, there is no I in team. There is an E in we. The we is the wife and I. Taken by surprise, taken aback, dumbfounded. And dumb we were for not attending town meetings and staying involved in what went on in this beautiful town of ours. Now, I came here in 1981. Is that right, Marcia? Retired from the Air Force in 1984. Born up in the other part of the country, up there, Washington State. There's no Frenchman up there. All right? Then I was met with a person, the name that I won't mention, and he told me again that we are our own fault. So I'm encouraging all of you to get involved in the town. Go to the selectmen's meetings. And shame on me, the planning board's meeting. I was on the appeals board for a number of years. I moved all the way up from an alternate to chairman of the board. And I learned a lot. And I encourage everybody else in this town to go. If you don't like what they're doing, go join them. And I got to talk some people into joining the appeals board, and they learned how some of this stuff works. All right? I'm here to save our town, if need be, our America the Beautiful. And I'm way too old. I'm 75. I can't go on here down to Washington, D.C. and straighten that mess out. That's an impossible goal anyway. So I'll do my best here. I said I'd stand up and be seen, speak up and be heard. Now I'm going to sit down, shut up, and be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poirier. Mr. White?
Good evening. Yep. Again, my name is Derek White. I've been a resident of this town for 18 years. I personally believe I have an obligation as well as a civic duty to contribute to the betterment of this community. As a responsible member of society, I can no longer sit back and expect problems to resolve themselves without actively participating. This is my first attempt at public office. What I have to offer is approximately 20 years of professional experience as an engineer and a manager in both the telecommunications and medical device industry. Throughout my career, I've been challenged to assist, to support, and to lead teams that have have resolved problems, build relationships, establish policy and procedures, and deliver positive outcomes to the bottom line. In order to achieve success and good fortune throughout my career, I've relied on 3 basic principles: open, clear, and honest communication, respect for my peers, and most of all, accountability for my actions. I live my life by these same basic principles. My marriage of 18 years is an testament to that fact. So it's these 3 basic principles of open, clear, and honest communication, respect for my peers, and accountability for my actions is what I have to offer the town of Berwick. Thank you.
All right, those are your short-term candidates, okay? Now we'll proceed to 2-year candidate terms, and Richie, you're up. I'm not going to try to pronounce it again.
It's DeChorico. My wife and I moved here in 2005. I've been married for 26 years, self-employed. I saw what was going on in the town, reading in the newspaper, and I believe that you should stand up and try to make change. And that's basically what I want to do, listen to the people and help bring more jobs to the community. We're in tough economic times right now, so we need to produce more jobs, welcome businesses into the town. That's basically it. Richard DeCherico. Richard DeCherico.
Thank you, Richie. Ed Gunier.
All right, good evening, everyone. Again, I'd like to, my name's Edward Gunier, and I would like to thank the Legion as well for putting on this event. It's great to see so many people out here. I think that's fantastic. And I think that we can have more and more people show up to the elections. It would be even better. There's over 5,000 people here, and I think only 1,000 show up to actually go to the election. So anyway, it's not too loud, is it? All right. Little information about myself and the reason why I'm running. It was not a decision that came very lightly. And again, there's been a lot of issues within the town which have brought concern to me and my family, as well as my children, and the future of the town. I'm very eager to take on this responsibility, and if you decide to elect me, I feel confident in saying that I can perform the duties of the selectman's position with zeal and integrity. A little bit about me. I'm currently married to my wife, Beth, who's over there in the corner. Been married for 20 years this year. We have 4 children, Gabrielle, Celine, Holden, and Genevieve, ranging from 16 down to 2. Currently hold a degree in healthcare management and work at the shipyard as a laboratory supervisor. So if anybody's from the shipyard, I've probably either drawn your blood or tested it, one of the two. In 2008, I received military orders to Portsmouth Naval Shipyard to work in a clinic as the lab supervisor. Upon receiving orders, our task of finding a place to live began. Unfortunately, that was during a time when homes were not selling very well, so my family stayed down in North Carolina for about 6 months while I stayed up here, traveling all over the place trying to find a place to live. But before I received orders, we came up here to Berwick and looked at a few homes, and one thing that I noticed that Berwick never left our mind, no matter where we looked. There was something about Berwick that really stuck with us, and part of that, I think, was that everybody I dealt with, their word meant something. Your word a handshake meant something still. And out of many places I've been in the military over 20 years, that's very hard to find anymore. And so that's something that was near and dear to my heart, and as well as my wife. So very important things for us. There was definitely a different atmosphere, and the schools had good reputations as well. It was very important. One of the main reasons we decided to stay here in 2011 when I retired last year, we weren't certain what was going to happen, and job, money, and location is what they tell you when you leave the military. You can pick 2 because you're not going to get all 3. And so our concern was we loved this town so much we wanted to stay. And I was fortunate enough to find a job at the shipyard doing the same thing I was doing before I retired. So God answered our prayers there. And upon my retirement, Berwick is where we were going to stay. So, and I'm glad that we did, and I'm thankful for that. I served this nation for 20 years and have a strong desire to continue to serve as a member of this community and possibly as one of the selectmen. I feel it is a duty and honor to serve in this capacity. I have several goals. The first is to create a more transparent relationship between a town and its citizens. Second is seek solutions to reduce or at least maintain our tax rates by proper budgeting and living within our means. Third is the focus on the basics, which I think is probably the most important. And by this, I mean, when there's certain decisions made by the board, I think there's two questions that need to be asked. First is, how does it benefit the town? And second, how does it benefit the people of this town? Those are two most important things that I think need to be asked. My ultimate goal is to ensure that the town remains a place that people want to live in, and more importantly, a place that people would seek to raise their children. Finally, if you should decide to nominate me as a selectman, I give you my word that I will fight for what you want. I will voice your concerns and desires, and I will be your advocate, because it's not my will that I seek to accomplish, but yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grenier. Mr. Haley, Mr. Gould.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you for the Legion for sponsoring the event. And good evening, Berwick. I would like to begin by telling you why I'm running, and then why it would be the perfect choice to be your next selectman. I've been a member of this community since 1993. In 1995, I enlisted in the Air Force and left to live in Texas for 4 years. I choose to return back to Berwick in 1999 to start a family because of Berwick's family-friendly lifestyle. As I raise my children here today, I want to ensure that the people who are making these decisions for this town are doing so ethically and with the fiscal responsibility in mind. In our current economy, people have less money, and the town needs to be more responsible with the money that the residents have entrusted to them. Integrity, trust, fiscal responsibility are the utmost qualities that need to be present in a selectman, all which I live by. I believe leaders should be able to communicate well with others and present highly ethical decision-making qualities. Over the past 17 years in the Air Force, and as I continue my service today, I have implemented these qualities successfully as a squad leader for the security forces both at home and while deployed. I continue to implement these same qualities as a supervisor for the New Hampshire Adjutant General's Department, a member for the New Hampshire Workforce Development Board, and currently as the chairman for Berwick Community Television. One of my greatest attributes is to truly listen. I am willing to take the time to hear all sides and then make the difficult decisions. I think carefully before I act. I take the position as selectman with the seriousness that it deserves, and my actions will coincide with to demonstrate this respect for the town and its citizens. In doing so, I will not only hold myself to these high standards, but expect the others with whom I will work with to uphold those same standards. Because of these attributes and my ability to lead, I could stand here and say how I can fix what seems to be the concern of the residents in Berwick, but I won't. I can, however, say, with a unified board and the support and the feedback from the residents, we can reestablish integrity and community pride back to the town of Berwick. So come April 3rd, vote for me, Derek Gould, leadership with integrity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gould. Mr. Haley.
You know, they say never let them see you sweat, but I don't know if that's going to be possible here in Miami tonight. Hello, my name is Bart Haley. I'd like to thank Mr. Vigil for moderating and the American Legion for hosting this important event tonight. Thank you for attending and those at home for watching. Who the heck is Bart Haley? I'm 49 years old, and I reside with my wife, Christine, and my daughter, Emily, at 3 Longmeadow Drive. I also have 2 children in college. My son, Mark, is a senior at the University of Southern Maine, and my daughter, Lauren, is a graduate student at Northwestern University. I grew up in Kittery, salutatorian, of my class at Trape Academy, I accepted an appointment to the U.S. Air Force Academy from then Maine Senator Bill Cohen. As a distinguished graduate from pilot training, I became a fighter pilot, serving my country home and abroad, and finishing my military service as an instructor pilot for the German Air Force. I received my MBA from Campbell University in North Carolina in 1990. Upon moving back to Maine, Elliott, I became active in the community, serving on the board and eventually as president of the Kittery-Elliott Chamber of Commerce. I was also a Rotarian in South Berwick. For the last 15 years, I've been employed in the aerospace and defense manufacturing industry, the last 11 of those as Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Kennebec Technologies in Augusta. I played a key role in establishing the Maine Aerospace Alliance, a cluster development organization funded by MTI, the Maine Technology Institute, part of the State of Maine's Department of Economic and Community Development, and was the organization's first steering committee chairperson. I remain active on that board today. I spent more than a minute on my bio because I'm a relatively newcomer to Berwick, and most of you do not know me, although my family ties run pretty deep. Many of you might be thinking that someone living in town just under a year would be ill-equipped or unprepared for the job of selectman. I believe that my relative short tenure, coupled with my record of community service and business acumen, are assets which make me ideally suited under current circumstance to fill one of these 3 open seats. Firstly, I have no cozy relationships or conflicts of interest with any town officials or committee/board members. This will help me increase transparency and accountability in all town affairs. I will bring professionalism, intelligence, fresh perspective, and a truckload of common sense to the board. I will listen to and respect the opinions of all people. I will be part of the solution restoring your trust in Berwick's town government. Secondly, Berwick needs some vision, a plan, and a motivated team to make it happen. Taxes are going up, employment opportunities and quality of life have stagnated at best. There have been a series of leadership failures that have resulted in negative outcomes for the town. I don't want to spend a lot of time looking back. It's time to move forward. That's what this election is all about. Tax reduction is not just about cutting and slashing budgets, although there are savings to be had there. I will ask difficult and pointed questions. I will poke at the numbers and insist that the town be run more like a business with a keener eye on pay for performance and the bottom line, not the top line. But what will really make the difference for Berwick is establishing a greater business base while maintaining our small town character of being a great place to live, raise a family, and retire. This increases tax revenue without similarly increasing the tax burden, ultimately reducing the mill rate. Employment opportunities will improve, as will our quality of life, if done thoughtfully and planfully. There are many challenges in attracting business so close to tax-free New Hampshire, but they are not insurmountable. The state of Maine has business assistance programs like Pine Tree Development Zones, virtually eliminating state taxes for an eligible business's first 5 years. Nonprofit resources like Maine & Company provide out-of-state business recruitment, relocation, and expansion consulting services at no cost to the town. There have been recent successes, the bank and hospital facility to name a couple. Don't fear this change. Very few communities have the opportunity to revitalize 10 acres in its town center from the ground up. What a facelift that would be for Berwick. We need to make sure we structure a plan that will encourage and attract the right types of business in all appropriate parts of town. And this is the time to have an active and aggressive business development committee to positively influence and prepare for the opportunities that lie directly in front of us. Change is usually uncomfortable. Change is always inevitable. Vote for positive change. Vote for proactive change. Vote for a better Berwick for all, young and old. Please vote for me, Bart Haley, Selectman.
Thank you, Mr. Haley. Just as a point of information, the 4 gentlemen who are running for the short term, where's Judy? Judy, you're here, Judy? But there's 2 openings for those. So those 4 gentlemen are running for 2 openings, just so you're clear, and the 4 gentlemen here on a 2-year term are running for the 2-year term that Joe Chambers had. All right, we're going to proceed to the question and answer period. I think I'll just flip-flop from one side of the aisle to the other. So let's start with the question and answer period. Sir, you want to go to the microphone? Again, I'll remind 1 minute.
Hi, I'm Steve Twombly from Little River Road. I have one question that I'd like any of you to answer who are willing to, or all of you. I'd like to know if you feel, or excuse me, if you've experienced any association, business or civic, with any of the 3 selectmen who were voted out of office? And if so, was there any quid pro quo?
Thank you. Mr. Krevling?
I've actually had this question once sent to me in an email and once on the Berwick Community News page. And I really, any kind of relationship that I would have would be a simple wave or you know, just an acquaintance kind of a thing.
Thank you. Mr. O'Connor?
I have no business or personal relationship with any 3 of those. In fact, I've only ever met one of them one time. Other than that, I have no relationship with
Thank
any
you.
of them.
Mr. Poirier?
I'm hard of hearing, so I didn't get the question.
The question is, of the 3 selectmen that were recalled, do you have any business type of a relationship or blood relationship with them?
No, sir, I do not have any relationship with
Thank you. Mr. White?
anybody.
I have no relationship with any of the individuals on a business perspective. I will readily admit that I did coach with Joe Chambers for 2 seasons in our Berwick youth program, and that was the extent of any of my interactions with the 3 individuals.
Thank you. Richie?
No, I did not have any relation with any of them.
Mr. Grenier?
No relationship at all.
Mr. Gould?
I worked with Marsha Elton on the board for BCTV, and I also, my son was coached by Joe Chambers. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Haley?
I consider all residents of Berwick neighbors, but I have absolutely no relationship with any of those people.
Thank you. Next question? Somebody on that side? Mr. Levine, microphone, please. 1 minute, Mr. Levine.
I really don't have a question. I'm just really thrilled. I wish all of you could get elected. For those that don't make it, please come back. You all have great qualities, and you have the right vision. You have it's all perfect. So thank you for being involved.
Thank you, Mr. Levine.
What, that was a minute?
Question, did you hear me at the beginning, Tom?
Thank you, Mr. Levine.
Thank you.
Ron.
Thank you, Tom.
He's another Frenchman.
I want to echo your words too, Tom. I thought these presentations were excellent. I'm the boss. But I want to congratulate you, gentlemen. I think that was an excellent presentation, and hopefully you'll hang around for the social time so people can talk to you. Question, sir?
Donald Young, Berwick, over on Bridge Street. I have a question. It's Socratic in nature, and so I'm going to be at a disadvantage because I can only ask one. But I will ask it of all of you, and you only have 5 minutes to answer, so do the best you can. I know that you all feel that if elected, you will act for what is the best interest of the town. And my question is, how do you determine what is good for the town?
Thank you, sir. We'll start on the opposite end. Mr. Haley.
I think it's important for members of the Board of Selectmen to have some vision and an understanding of perhaps where they think, obviously we'll have an opinion of where Berwick should go in the long term, but I really believe, particularly in light of recent voice from the town, that all people's opinions should be considered, and I would encourage people to come to the meetings, I went door to door to many houses in town, and I heard what you had to say, and I don't really believe that any one of us individually has the right answer for the community. I think we all need to work on that together.
Mr. Gould?
As I did mention in the speech that I had, it is going to be done by you, the community, and the people in the community by bringing up things and instilling that during those board meetings that we have. And the unified board has to have a unity. It can't be 3-2s. It has to be together. The board has to work together, and they have to do it for the town.
Thank you. Mr. Goodyear?
Yeah, very good points, all of them. I think that it's kind of twofold, because it's not just the board that needs to make those decisions. The people need to be involved as well. And the more people that we have out that come out and go to the meetings, or at least watch the meetings, become more informed about what's going on in the town. And we as selectmen, or people, if we're elected as selectmen, I think it's important that we are involved and interactive with the people of the town in order to get an idea of what the pulse of what people want is going to be.
Thank you. Richie?
All very good points. I agree. Most of it is up to the people of the town, and we have to follow what the people want. Majority will rule.
Mr. White?
The town meeting really is just the accumulation of where to come together with the final voice. What we really need to do is find new ways to reach out and actually interact with the people on a more regular basis in their natural environment. In the meeting, in the boardroom, if you will, it can become very uncomfortable for a lot of people to bring their opinions to front and talk freely. The key is really going to be actually how to come to you on your terms, on your turf, in your safe zone, and able to have an open, clear dialogue.
Mr. Poirier?
Yes. If I'm elected as selectman, I'll expect you people and to tell your friends to come tell me what your problems are, what your complaints are. And if I don't act on them right away, come back. I've got a phone number, and you know where I can find out where I live. But I would want you to come and talk to me. And if I don't listen to you, there's a little lady in the pink right here, my wife. She'll listen, and then she'll tell me what to do. But I want you people to come and tell us what's wrong, what you're upset about. And if people don't think it'll work, we just had an overwhelming recall election. So it will work. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. O'Connor?
As far as the decision-making process goes, I'm a big pros and cons guy. I regularly make a list with a line down the middle and weigh my options on both sides. So what I would rely on is the members of the community to come to me with as much information as I possibly can, and that would be how I would make my decisions or in the future.
Mr. Grevling?
The community elects the selectmen to carry out the policies that the legislative body votes on. But it's the selectmen's job not only to do that, but to also bring things forward to you to see what you think about how to approach something. It's our responsibility to, as Derek pointed out, to provide a safe environment to be able to talk about these things, and that's one of the things I mentioned at the beginning, is to bring the communications more to you, to make things more convenient. Things are busy these days. People have lots of, they have work, they have kids events, they have all these kinds of things. It's our responsibility to find out what you need and then to make the best decisions based on that.
Thank you. Next question? Sir, I'm on this side. No, I'm on this side. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Adam Podolak. I live at 82 Ridland Road. One question about taxes. What is some of your guys' ideas about stabilizing that? My taxes went up probably about $600 probably in the past year, and it looks like it's going to go up more. I have some thoughts on that.
Thank you. Mr. Grevling?
Well, I mean, I think it's very late in the budget season at this point. I think we need to do the best we can to get through this one. But I think over the longer term, I've always worked with budget committees in New Hampshire. And I think it's important to have more eyes on budget decisions and to take a look at savings and possible efficiencies that can take place. And I think when you appoint or put in place a budget committee that can help you to do that, because you have a lot more ideas that are coming out on the table, and those people have ideas that come from people that they know. I would be in favor of putting together a process like that, and I think in the meantime, we need to look at consolidating different types of services. If we can cooperate with neighboring communities and do those types of things, that could help out. I mean, we do that all the time in the communities I work for in New Hampshire, and in some cases it's been successful, in other cases it doesn't make sense.
Mr. O'Connor?
First of all, fiscally, I'm pretty conservative. So first and foremost, I would want to look at the expenditures of the town and how the money is spent at this point. Outside that, I think we need to make the business environment here in town a little bit more business friendly, to maybe spread some of those fiscal responsibilities out amongst the corporate world as well.
Mr. Poirier?
Yes, I had a little handout I've given several people. One of the arguments I put in here, statements, is the second item is to have 2 years without a budget increase. I do believe no budget increase amounts to no property tax increase. The tax rate, however, also has components such as school and county that we don't control. But at the time of where there's a lot of people don't make money, and gas is getting sky high, so we got to cut down on budget increases. And I expect you people to come down and listen to the budget and the Selectmen's Board in the next few weeks. Thank you.
Mr. White?
Been a lot of talk about budget committees. Again, the idea of that is to actually put more eyes on the focus onto the key areas and actually dig into the numbers. What we'd like to see, again, some of the discussions I've had amongst various people is how do we bring a business mentality back into the town and understand the budgeting process? What are the guidelines in which we actually develop a budget by department? For what I'm seeing to this point, it's based on just a rough, in my opinion, a rough estimate of what we've done in previous years. So I don't know what the guidelines are. So understanding what the guidelines are, then help give better direction, then to have sharp the pencil and work backwards down to the lowest level and reduce the cost as much as possible.
Thank you. Mr. DeShirio?
Well, just as you do at home, you have to live within your means. You can't spend more money than the town brings in. So you have to run the budget as you do any business also, without overspending, and cut where you can. In this economy, there's going to be a lot of cuts.
Mr. Grenier?
Yeah, it's kind of redundant, but again, there's been a lot of talk about the budget committees. And I think that's an integral part in having an elected budget committee who is going to actually view or have a second set of eyes on the budget itself to look at different areas of where we can actually cut costs. Everybody's cutting costs. We're no different. We need to do the same thing. The question is where are we going to cut? You know, and chances are it may be everybody. It's going to hurt, but it's going to hurt everybody.
Mr. Gould?
So far you heard about the budget committee, and I hope when that opportunity does arise for the residents that they do come out and they actually become part of that committee. Again, there has been a lot of talk about a lot of things. There's one thing about consolidating municipal departments in the town. We could do that, but you have to have a fact-finding mission to sit down, look at where these things can be deducted from, where they can be merged, and then that is where the committee comes in and the board comes in and makes that decision. So,
Mr. Haley?
The school budget represents 2/3 of this town's budget. Last year, that was responsible for $1.02 of the $1.50 mill rate increase. So I would encourage all residents to apply equal pressure to the school committee to reduce their costs. However, there are opportunities in the town budget, but the real solution is to generate revenue that exceeds burden. And the key to that is to attract business to the community in appropriate areas of town. Now, we're going to have a 10-acre parcel open up here in the next few years in our city center, and we need to get out in front of that and make sure that we are attracting the types of business that we want to come into our community so that Berwick continues to be a wonderful place to live, raise a family, and retire. So the real key is reducing the school budget and attracting appropriate business to the community.
Thank you. Question? Ma'am? These questions don't all have to be addressed so that they all answer them. It's up to you. If you have a specific question for a specific candidate, that's fine also. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you for having this tonight. Thrilled to be able to meet all the candidates. I'm trying to figure out how to ask this question without sounding like I have an issue. But right now, I want to leave Berwick. I have a parcel of land. I wanted to give my children land that they could build their homes. I don't want to do that anymore. Basically, it's because of pollution, industry that's brought to town that I don't consider safe. I'm concerned about the well-being in the elementary school because of the type of industry that's being brought into the industrial zone of our town. And that's that. Thank you.
Again, I'm going to ask for questions, okay? That's what the purpose of this is for, so please, if you have a question, you know.
My question is, what type of industries do you propose for the town? What do you see as, like, the quality of the life in this town to be continued as a country town, like a farming community?
Thank you. Mr. Haley?
Well, ma'am, I think you did a real fine job expressing your views in a very effective and civil manner. I think we need to have more of that type of decorum at all town meetings. If any of you have been to recent meetings or have watched them on TV, there's been a real breakdown in civility, and that needs to change. And although we can agree to disagree, not particularly in this case, but we can do that in a civil manner. I believe that there are a number of industries that would be welcome in our town, some of which would include biotech, financial services, call centers, advanced precision manufacturing, advanced agriculture and forestry technologies. So this, again, is a discussion that we're going to have as a community. We're not smarter than you on this side of the table. We need your input and feedback. Thank you.
Mr. Gould?
We have a parcel of land right across the street that could probably be utilized for a lot of things. You see other communities like in Dover and Rochester and even South Berwick with the mills. The only problem is that we have to find a way to clean it or buy it. We could use satellite college courses. We can have businesses like that down here, as Mr. Haley had said, call centers, high-tech, technical institutes down here. We can do that. We just need the time. And that's hopefully what we will get if one of us get elected. It's going to take time. And just give us that time, and hopefully we can do it for the town of Berwick.
Mr. Goodyear?
Yeah, I think it's not necessarily a question of what type of industry we think needs to come to town. I think that's up to the people of the town. What you decide and what you think needs to be here, I think, is most important. Again, they've mentioned some very fantastic ideas, and they're all very viable options. But again, it's time and it's money, two things that a lot of people don't have both of. So that's it.
Mr. DeShirico?
Well, there are many kinds of businesses that could come to town, and nobody's going to be happy with every one of them. It's always going to be that way. There will always be somebody complaining about something on a business, bringing it into the town. Once again, it's going to have to be what the people want, and the majority will have to rule on that one.
Mr. White?
Coming from the manufacturing background, I know it's really difficult to say I'd like to bring manufacturing jobs into Berwick, and realistically, we live in the most ineffective, as far as cost efficiency in the United States to build manufacturing jobs here. So if they are manufacturers, they have to be of high value, very, very specific, with a very focused need. And we'd love to see that in town. The other thing I like to say is that all jobs that come in the town may not suit the needs of everybody within the town, and we have to be careful how we approach that. Last thing I want to see is that we say that we have the not in my backyard principle. If we have the opportunity to see something as the betterment for the majority of the town, we should weigh that out, and hopefully it doesn't impact the 20%, making it much difficult to actually impose.
Mr. Poirier?
And I would ask you, Mr. Moderator, to repeat the question. I didn't understand it.
Well, I understand the question from the young lady over there. It was, what do you see as far as bringing businesses into town as one part of your question? I think the other one was your vision for the town. Would that be accurate? Your vision, because she seemed kind of disillusioned about the current situation in our community.
Wanting to bring business into Berwick is the basic question?
Yes.
Well, when I was on the appeals board, ladies and gentlemen, was a bank. I can't think of the name of it now. Right across the street there. They were wanting to take that old building down, tear it down, build a bank. And it came to me on the appeals board about they didn't have enough parking spaces. And I said unto them, oh, yes, you do. We've only got 17. I said, no, you got that whole school street next to Prime Tanning, and you don't need the appeals board approval to put that bank in. Planning board can approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. O'Connor?
I think first and foremost, the town needs to come up with a comprehensive plan of what they want the town to look like in the future. Then you divide the town up into certain sections that can have different types of development and different types of business opportunities. And then you look at each and every individual opportunity from a cost-benefit analysis. How is it going to affect the town? How is it negatively going to affect the town? And how is it going to positively affect the town? Opportunities that have greater positive output, you make it more inviting for those particular businesses to do business in your town. Opportunities that are less beneficial, you don't. You have to look at each individual case on a case-by-case basis and go from there.
Mr. Krevling?
I think in putting together any kind of plan in attracting business, you have to know what your community has to offer, and you have to know how to market it to different types of businesses that you're looking to have located in the town of Berwick. You do have an opportunity with the Prime Tanning parcel to deal with that. It is going to take time. It is going to take money. I mean, brownfields and projects are not easy to deal with, but you have a great opportunity in that parcel in the middle of town to deal with it, and I think it's going to take a dedicated group of people, which I know you've had here before, the folks that work to get the medical facility and the bank in place, and trying to pull on their talents and other people's in the community.
Thank you. Next question, Mr. Rodriguez.
David Rodriguez. Thank you to the Legion for hosting this event, and thank you all for being here to answer some questions. Accountability is a very important quality for every leader, and that goes for your own accountability and for holding those people who you are responsible for accountable for their actions as well. Please give an example of a time where you have held somebody accountable for something they shouldn't have done in a very difficult situation. Thank you.
Mr. Haley.
Well, I don't want to give any specifics about any particular personnel issues that I've had experience with, but I will say that in running the town more like a business, we need to have our public officials and town employees held accountable by having written evaluations and annual or biannual reviews conducted. I don't think that's happening right now. And I think the selectmen would write the review for the town manager, and the town manager would write the review for the department heads, and it would flow down from there. And I think the selectmen would review those reviews, those evaluations, prior to them being given to the employees. And if there's an issue, a personnel issue, then you deal with it in writing. I think there's some animosity out there right now for a lot of the town officials right now, and we really couldn't do anything about that if we wanted to. We've got to document things appropriately and hold people accountable by performance review.
Mr. Gould.
For a personal experience, I have dealt with individuals that would fail to follow policy and procedures. They do get disciplined, but the thing about that is that you have to sit down in order to fix them or correct their actions. You have to sit down and listen to them and give them viable options to be able to correct themselves. But you do have policies and procedures in place to follow. And if you do not follow them, then that person is not being accountable. And that's when they have to be upheld.
Mr. Goodyear.
It's kind of interesting because I think just about everybody up here, or most of us, have some sort of military experience and some sort of leadership in holding people accountable. I know I've had my share, but again, every area or every organization usually has standard operating procedures. If those procedures are not followed and the guidelines are not being followed as well, then it brings up a good point that written evaluations are probably the only way to document that type of discrepancy. And oftentimes it needs to be continually documented in order to keep track of performance. So I think it's a fantastic idea that a colleague brought up here. So definitely evaluations for accountability and responsibility are key.
Mr. DeShirico.
I agree with that. The accountability and also complaints from the residents of the town should be all processed in writing, because I know some issues that he said, she said does not work. It needs to be done in writing.
Mr. White.
To echo the same sentiments earlier, again, without documentation, it's very difficult to go back and prove something after the fact. So in order to hold somebody accountable, first you have to have expectations, you have to have follow-on reviews, and then do they meet the expectations, and then there's clear open communication as far as why something maybe was not met. There could be circumstances which direct something in a different direction, which is perfectly acceptable. So again, without documenting those changes along the way, you can basically hold somebody accountable for actually not doing their job if the circumstances permit. So the documentation is the key, and communication is part of that documentation process.
Mr. Poirier.
Yes. The Board of Selectmen and the town employees should never commit an act that we even have the semblance of wrongdoing. This should hold true to all boards and their officials. Having clear ethical policies and scrupulously holding to them is a key to the spirit of unity, trust, and pride needed in the town. Now, I am not going to step on anybody's toes or name anything, but I can remember several weeks ago, a Board of Selectmen said something about there's no corruption in the Board of Selectmen. And then said there's no corruption in the town hall. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to get me off to the side, I can personally tell you that those things were not true. There is corruption, and that's what we've got to get away from. Thank you.
Mr. O'Connor.
I think first and foremost, expectations need to be laid out there, clear what the expectations are in the position that one holds, and then clearly documented lack of accountability or clearly documented error in falling outside of those expectations should be documented and dealt with on a review type basis.
Mr. Krevling.
I've heard at the last few selectmen meetings, people referring to getting policies revamped, looking into that. I think it's important to understand, I mean, everything that everybody said here tonight is correct. It's personnel policy kind of 101. But in our case, the selectmen, we can, if we're elected, help to put together the policies, but it's the town manager's job to administer those things. And I think it's the selectmen's job to make sure that they're being administered the way that they're supposed to be.
Hear, hear.
Thank you. I'm getting a sense that perhaps it might be better to do one-on-one. Everybody feeling kind of that way also? Any strong exceptions to having, ma'am? I'm asking a question. I'm thinking about ending the question and answer period and perhaps allow you folks to approach whomever you would like to and talk to them and discuss it with them. That seemed like a better process at this point in time. Aye? Opposed? The ayes have it. We'll call an end to this question and answer period. Gentlemen, I wish you'd circulate. Help yourself to some of the goodies. I want to thank, excuse me just a minute, please. Please. Let me have your attention, please. Andrea, please. I want to thank our TV committee. Brian, I see Brian over there. I see Vicky, and I think Eric must be somewhere. He's probably running down the main stuff. But these people are all volunteers, folks. They set up this communication. They went out and got some microphones so that we could have this process. So I think they deserve. We have a couple of Girl Scouts over here. Stand up, young ladies. They agreed to help us, the Legion, to get some community service tonight. I just want to recognize them. And on behalf of the people here, and I'm glad, thank you for coming, by the way. I think you gentlemen handle yourselves very well, and hopefully you'll mingle with the people and answer their questions. And thank you for coming, folks. Good job, everyone.